Hi everyone, I hope this finds you well. My name is Andrew Boronsky, and in this video we're going to be looking at Brightspace assessment, and specifically looking at giving students feedback and assessing with the assignments tool. Okay, to get started here, I'm going to jump into one of my classes. Now, as I'm doing that, I'm going to highlight that this is a part 2 video. The Part 1 session looks at setting up the grades tool in your gradebook and looking at a very detailed look at creating assignments and creating rubrics and how to sync them up. This video is going to be looking at more about the student perspective and giving feedback to students with that, but I am actually going to start this with a quick overview of how to really quickly create an assignment and or rubric and get started in that space. So to start here, I want to highlight right off the bat with the activity feed, you actually can create a very quick assignment here, but I do want to highlight it lives in the activity feed. If you ever come back and delete that activity feed post for some reason, it would remove the assignment. So I personally really like creating them in assessments and assignments, and then you can share that link here via activity feed. So I'm going to go up here and click on assessment on my nav bar. Again, you can customize your nav bar, maybe just have the assignments folder there, and click on assignments. I can see the assignment I have here. The little ribbon highlights it as it's set to being a grade tool. I'm going to create a very quick assignment here. And so I'm just going to go essay as an example. I can set it to being graded or ungraded. Again, all this is covered in the previous video, instructions, how to add things here, link out, giving audio or video instructions. But what I'm just going to focus on is the submission completion piece here. Again, if you want a more detailed look at how to create and share assignments, you can go back and watch that first video. What I do want to highlight here is the submission type. So file submission, text, on paper observed. These, again, control how the assignment works. I'm going to set this one for a file submission, which means students are going to have to submit it, a file or attach a file to this to be able to see it. So I'm going to click on the visibility here and make it visible for my students and click save and close. All I did here was title and file submission. Again, there's lots more you can do with this though. And click save and close. Now I can see I've got that set up here, and I've got 2 students in my class right now, and I get that tracking of are there any new submissions coming in that I haven't seen yet? Have they been completed? So that's student submission, getting them in. And then have I evaluated and or published that feedback? And if there's a due date you set for it, you can see that here as with that previous submission. I'm going to go ahead and create one more for this demonstration. And I'm going to call this one, let's just call this text submission so we know exactly what it is. Again, maybe I'll throw a due date on this one and set it due for Friday next week. And then with the submission completion, just to show another example, I'm going to turn this into a text submission. Okay, and by text, it means a text box for students to type into. I'm going to make this one, I'm going to leave this invisible for a sec actually. Click save and close. So you'll see here it is, if I hover over this, it is hidden from students. It is an eye with a line through it. My students will not be able to see this or access this page even if I give them the link to it. To make this visible for my students, I'm going to click on the little drop down arrow for it and then click make visible to users. And now my students will be able to see that. I can also click again to hide that from them. All right, I've got 2 new assignments set up here very, very quickly in 2 different styles with a file submission and a text submission. One thing I'll highlight again, very quick in review. And if you want the detailed piece of this, please go back and watch the first video. I'm going to click on assessment here and rubrics. Okay, I can see I've got one here added already. I'm going to start a very quick new one again. So again, want to build a rubric, click on new rubric. And I'm just going to call this essay rubric. And again, I can see my criteria here and some defaults for me. Me personally, again, you've got options here. I'm going to go holistic and no score for this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to flip this back to analytic and just leave this as one criteria. I'm just going to go writing as an example. I can have something through here. I'm going to throw in some quick initial feedback. And again, what this would be something to default and start with, but you can customize it after the fact. And I've got my overall score down here for levels. I could look at some options for this, but I'm just going to go very basic here for the setup. One thing I'll highlight, which we'll be looking at in another video that's coming soon, will be how to add curriculum expectations and assess via curriculum expectations. I get tracking through that by levels here. Just wanted to mention that as an option, but I'm gonna go down here and click close to kind of save off this. All right, so I've got my essay rubric here, which is newly created for me to work through. If I wanted to add that rubric to one of my assignments, I can quickly go back to my assessments and look at my assignments here. And if I want to edit an assignment folder I have, I'm going to click on the essay as an example and edit folder. This is going to go back and edit that creation or assignment folder for it. You'll see here the option for evaluation feedback. If I expand this out, I'll see here there's an option for adding rubrics. I could create a new rubric from scratch right from here, but if I click add existing, I'll see the rubrics I just created or have. I can click to preview it here and it will pop open for a new tab. I can see, oh, yep, that is the rubric that I want. I'm going to choose that rubric and then add it to this assignment. Okay, this is my file submission assignment, which I can see here. I'll note really quickly, because I'm going to be looking at it in this video, leave the annotations tool checked off. It's a great feature within Brightspace to annotate right on top of student work. All right, I've got this set to visible. I click save and close with my rubric having been added to this assignment now. All right, so in that very quick demonstration, and again, I'll highlight this is covered in much greater detail for both creating assignments and rubrics in a previous video. If you want some help with that, check that out. But there was a very quick and easy I'm going to create a file submission assignment. I'm going to create a text submission assignment, which again is a text box for students. I'm going to attach a rubric to one of those and have this set up and ready to go. What I'm actually going to do now is I've got my teacher set up there and I've got those posted. What does it look like from the student perspective? I think it's important as an educator, just have a quick sense of what does this look like for a student in your class. The first thing I'll highlight is you can always click on your profile icon and then click view as student. And this will make you a generic student in your class. You're not an actual student. You're not gonna be able to submit anything here as a generic student, but it is a nice thing to know and have a look at. So it should look really, really similar for you as a teacher versus viewing as a student. If I click on assessment now and go to assignments, you'll see what it looks like from a student's perspective. So they can see these things here. It highlights to the student, have they submitted this or not? If you're using grades and giving a score on it, the student can see that here, and they'll actually see if you've published feedback to them or not. If there's an evaluation status, and they can click to go and see your feedback and also the due dates for their task. So it's a really nice view for the student and tracking for what to do. If I click on the essay as an example here, and again, this is viewing as a generic student, I'm not a student in the class, I can pull up and show the holder information. I can show or hide the rubric. So as a student, you can see the rubric here that I attached. Again, I didn't add any details to it right now. If the teacher has scored it, you would see your score. And then since this was a file submission assignment, as a student here, I can leave a comment or use a robust number of tools to share with my teacher, or click to add a file and submit that file. So I'm going to cancel this one. So that was our essay, which was set up as a file submission, still viewing as a student. If I click on text submission, I can also see what this one looks like. Now, you see it's a different setup. I didn't put any instructions on this one, so there's no instructions for them to read. Had that been here in the assignment, the student would see those instructions or links to resources to review first. And then for the submission type, it tells me it's a text submission. Now it gives me a text box here as the student to complete, which is great. And what I want to highlight really quickly, again, there's lots of ways to complete this, but they can add in images, hyperlink to things for you. Just type into the text box. And I'll highlight really quickly with the play and insert stuff button. Students also have access to the add video note tool, which would allow them to make a very quick video of themselves and submit that to you as a text submission. So from an accessibility standpoint, or just a differentiation standpoint, a student can type in a note, link out to other certain things to you, or just use a quick video of themselves and share that with you. And then once they've added something in there, they would click submit. Okay, I'm going to cancel here. To return to your view as an educator, simply go up to the right where you can see here it's viewing as a student and then click the X to remove that view as student and return to your role as a teacher. Quick tip for you here, if you ever like clicking around wondering why you can't do something you know you should be able to do, just go up and see if you're viewing as a student really quickly, because that might be the case for why you can't get at what you want to get at, or things aren't looking the way you expect them to because you forgot you were viewing as a student. All right, I'm actually going to minimize, bring this down and pull this down, and I'm actually going to pull up here a view as a student. So this is me now as an actual student, not viewing, but a separate browser as a student. I'm going to click into this demonstration class. And so now again, I'm here as a student, and then if I had a task to get to, I can go up here and click on assessment. What I'll highlight from the student perspective, there are lots of ways for you as the educator to share an assignment with the students. Me personally, I like linking to an activity feed here where they would just click and jump to the assignment for that day. You can have it built into with your folders where the student's like working through some resources or content, and then they have a link directly to their assignment from the content area. But a student can also just go to the assignment folder and see all their assignments there too. So here I am as an actual student. I can see the 3 assignments published to me here. I can see I have not submitted any of them. I can just click the not submitted to get right to that submission piece, or click on the link here for this. So again, I would see the instructions for this assignment listed here. If as a teacher, I just put those in. I can see the rubric here as a student. So I know what I'm being assessed on for this one, the criteria that I'm being assessed on. I can see I haven't been submitted here. And now it says I have, if this is a files to submit, I have not submitted any files. And that says after uploading, you must click submit to complete the submission. As a student here, again, lots of, I can leave a comment to my teacher, that video note here again if I want, add a quick audio or video recording to this, but I am going to need to attach a file here. So as a student, I'm going to click add file. And you'll see I get a variety of options here. My computer would be for me to upload a file from my device, and the other key I want to highlight is this Google Drive icon, which will give the student direct access to their Google Drive to submit files from. Really important with this, I'm going to actually leave this here and click cancel. As a student, they just have to do this once, and educators can do this as well. They will not see that Drive icon in their assignment Dropbox by default. They need to do a one-time where they come here, expand out this Google Apps widget on the Brightspace homepage, sync their WRDSB Google account, give it permissions Brightspace basically to sync up with their WRDSB Brightspace account, to sync with their WRDSB Google account. Once they have done that once, they will then see that icon within an assignment folder to attach right from their Google Drive. Now, we're just heading back into this assignment here as a student and clicking that add file. Because I've synced that Google account here, I now see that Google Drive icon where I could select, find my file that I want to submit, and submit it to this Dropbox. Also really important for you to know as an educator, when your students do this via Google Drive, it is not a live link to the Google document. Basically, the integration is taking a snapshot of that file in that point of time and adding it into your Dropbox, and it kind of shares it as a PDF. There's a really good reason for this. One, there's a standpoint and a snapshot in time, so you know what was submitted when. A student can always come back and submit an updated file to you if they want. But this also allows you to annotate right on top of the document with the annotations tool built into Brightspace. It is a really great feature. So it doesn't matter if the student hands in a Google Doc or a Google slide deck from Google Drive, or if they upload a PDF or a Microsoft Word file, or even an image right off their computer, you will be able to see all of those, preview them right within the assignment Dropbox. No sharing permissions are needed on it, and you can annotate right on top of that student work. For this example, I'm going to click my computer here as the student. I click upload to go into my computer and files, and I'm going to grab this exemplar essay here and just double click and attach that to this assignment Dropbox. I'm going to click add. I can now see that has been attached here, and now I get that option to submit. This will be grayed out until there's a file added, because the teacher for this one set this up as a file submission to add. A student, as I mentioned, depending on the setup, the teacher has controls where they can only allow one file submission, or they can allow students multiple file submission. So quickly here as a student, I'm going to submit this. And I can see it's submitted. It links out to that doc, so I can go and look at it as a student to make sure it looks right. I didn't add any comments. It shows the submission date and time. Also, really importantly, I like to highlight for the educator, confirmation email sent successfully. To the student, they will get an email, and I can see the submission receipt. And if I jump into this very quickly as a student, it actually sends an email of that submission to the student to preview and look at. Now, if I go to all messages here, I will see that submission receipt. So it's kind of on the home page of their class. It's an overall thing. And I can see here, this is to confirm that your submission to an assignment folder was S for essay was successful, and it gives your student ID and the date and time. Really helpful if there's ever confusion about did a student, they're saying they submitted it, but you don't see it. This is great to point your students to, like, hey, do you have that submission receipt to let you know it was successful and you've got that tracking. All right, I'm gonna go back to my assignments here. Now I can see as a student, so it's one submission, one file, I've got that tracking. I can see it hasn't been scored or evaluated yet, okay? Another option here, as a student, I'm gonna go into text submission. And again, I've got all these options for sharing here. Say this is my submission, but again, could link out to things, insert images, do the insert stuff, and add a video note as a student to make a video of me and share that with my teacher for them to watch and listen to. And then once I've typed something in this text box or added something to it, I can click submit as a student. Okay, same thing, confirmation email sent. There's my that. I can come back and view the history or submit more to add depending on the setup. All right, there's my view as a student. I'm gonna minimize this and bring back my teacher view. Okay. Now, as a teacher, if I jump into assessments and click on assignments, I will get these updates here. So I can see, oh, I've got new submissions as the educator. I can get tracking for the class as a whole. What's my status again for have I evaluated this yet, and or given feedback to my students. This is hyperlinked for me to jump to, or I can jump to the overall folder for this as well. One I'll highlight that I'm not going to demonstrate here, via assessment, you'll see an option here for quick eval as an educator too. This is a space for you as an educator to see all submissions across all your classes, filter and organize them in different ways. I really like quick eval. I recommend checking it out. I'm not going to cover in this video, but it's a pretty intuitive tool just for you to kind of stay on top of all your assessments across all your Brightspace classes. Definitely have a look. Sticking with the assignments feature here though, I could click essay, or I'm just going to click on new submissions here and click this one now as the educator. Okay. Now, good to know. First time coming here as an educator, Brightspace pushes out new settings and updates the look and feel to kind of stay on top of things. And so when they do this, they give you options. Do you want to use the newer experience, or would you rather stay on the older one? They eventually will get rid of the old experience, but they leave a wide open transition time for educators. So you can see more about it here and kind of figure out what's what. If you're brand new, I recommend just sticking with turn it on. I like going with the newer experience personally. What you click though, just to highlight very easily. So again, oh, it pops over to this new experience here. I can see things. Good to know, across Brightspace, you'll see this little drop down arrow in the top right. If I click that to expand it, it tells me the experience I'm in, and I can choose to leave it on or turn it off and flip back to the previous experience. So you can toggle back and forth between the two for a period of time until they remove that older experience. Okay, so here I am in the new experience. Again, I can see the student I'm on. So I got the secondary demo student. I can see the submissions from this user. So if they have multiple submissions, I could jump back and forth between the different files they've added to this. I can see it's flagged as unevaluated right now. And there's this orange dot letting me know I have yet to view this. So I have not opened the student work yet. Here's my rubric and a space for my overall feedback for this student. So as the educator here, I'm going to go ahead and click on the work. And now I will see it opens in previews here for me as an educator. I can click back to go to the user submissions here into that student submissions. Again, I can jump back and forth if there were multiple submissions for this. And if I had multiple students who had submitted this file right now, I could use the arrows in the top right to toggle to the next student and work through my assessments. Now, within this page here that was submitted, and again, this is true if it is a file upload as a PDF or a Word file, if it's submitted directly from their Google Drive, say as a Google Doc or a Google slide deck, if they use the Drive integration in Brightspace, or if they upload an image, I will be able to preview the student work here, and I get this great annotations toolbar across the top. I'm not going to be able to dive down into everything in this video for this covers, but I did want to highlight a number of the key features with this. So I can expand this full screen if I want and just really focus in on the student work. And I can always click escape to return to this screen here and have things beside each other. If I want to be working on this and the rubric at the same time, I can expand that rubric out and see my levels here and look to add feedback, or minimize that so you can have the rubric open here beside you. Now, via the student work, as you're previewing this, you'll see different options to jump between pages. I can see there's 3 pages here, settings. You've got a lot of options. You can zoom in and zoom out on the student work. But what I want to flag for this and what I really, really like about this are the options here for annotations. Now, I'm going to click the drop down here and I can see I've got 4 really nice options. I've got a drawing tool, a freedom highlighter, a text highlighter, or an eraser to use. To start, I'm going to select drawing, and you'll see your cursor changes. If you don't see it change, just click here again to toggle it on or off. So you can see I've got my cursor on, I'm clicking, and I got nothing. Now if I click here, I can see this expands out. I'm on the pen, I can choose my pen color. I can choose a variety of different things, sizing, the size of it, how it's coming across here. So really interesting options to get geeky with this. But now I've got that crosshairs, I can actually annotate right on top of the student work in this space. I think this is absolutely brilliant. You can use this in so many different ways to give students feedback. And I'll mention this quickly, I'm doing this via computer here with a mouse right now, not great for writing. If you have a relatively modern tablet, whether it's an iPad or an Android tablet, log in via the browser. If you're on an iPad, I would recommend using Safari. On an Android tablet, using the Chrome browser. Just log into Brightspace like you normally would via the browser. Go into your class. Brightspace is HTML mobile responsive, so it should just adjust to your screen and look really clean and nice via the mobile version on your device browser. And you should be able to come in here and use a stylus and use this annotations tool to mark up student work as well. I'm going to continue on using this via my web browser though. So I've got that kind of writing tool. If I come down here and say the text highlighter, I can click and drag to highlight specific things and just kind of look at that there and highlight what I want. I can also choose the freedom highlighter to pull out certain things here. Again, I can change my colors if you want to go with certain things there and highlight things that way. Really, really great. If you're unhappy with something, you can remove it too. So with here example, I have the eraser, so I can kind of pull that out and erase things I didn't want to have highlighted. And I can flip back to my drawing pen here. So there's this piece, really great options. The next one I want to cover is right beside it. This might be my favorite feature within the annotations tool, is the note feature. So I've got this note. You'll see I got lots of options here to play around with and colors. I'm not going to go into detail here, and you can try this out for yourself, and there's symbols and things you can use on top of this student work. But the one I want to highlight here is just with the basic note tool, which you can see I'm on right here. I'm going to add a note somewhere on this. I'm just going to click, say I want to highlight something here. They use situation and then situations right beside each other. I'm going to click. Now I've got this note right on the document. So I'm going to highlight to them, you repeated the same word here. Okay. Now, this is what, if I click off it, you can see it lives there. Now, just by hovering my mouse over it, it pops that note up. Now, I can click and drag this as the educator and drop it exactly where I want to be in the document. Pull it up here, right between the two. And so there it lives. But if, again, for the student, they're just going to see a little note. They hover their mouse over it. They see your feedback, and then it pops up. I think this is brilliant and even better, and I love the Google Docs commenting feature, but like where it's these highlights and over the side, I think these notes on top of the document is even better. So great feature there. I'll highlight here too. You can see some different options. So if I want to highlight something like with an arrow, I I can go here and drop that arrow, and then same thing, it's still a note for me to put in comments, but it functions as an arrow to hover over. So you can choose these symbols you want to bring things around. Again, I can drag this down here, pop it there as well for the student to view. You also have a text box option, so you can draw a text box on here and put feedback on as well if you want to type right on the document if you like. Me personally, I like that notes feature, but again, really up to you. You've got options for lines, arrows, and rectangles, and a variety of other things. So really great for annotating right on top of the work. As you've worked through this now and kind of done your annotations, you can come over here to your rubric if you've attached it, click to expand the rubric, and then choose the specific criteria. So you can see I've got this set up as levels, and it's letting me know the level I'm choosing as I select it here. If I say this is an example of a level 3 work. Now you see the criterion feedback changing. If you remember in our rubric, I had a space where I set up initial feedback for the student. So great on that rubric where you put that initial feedback in is like, here's a starting point for me. Now, if I go back to my level 3, say this is an actual one I want to say for the student, I want to personalize it for the student, I can still edit this. So I can, again, if I was working with Chris, I could add the student name in and then still add in some personal feedback for the student. And this is tied to that specific criterion. If I had multiple criteria on this rubric, I would be clicking through each, leveling each, and be able to give my students specific feedback on each of those criteria in the rubric if I wanted. I also have a space here for overall feedback. So again, this is on my rubric and specific to each criteria within the rubric if I'm using a rubric. But via the overall feedback area, a little more detail. I got bold, italics, underline, numbered or bolded points. So I might say, hey Chris, great work. Here are some next steps for you. And then I might go like a 1, 2, 3. I can optionally upload any files into this if I want. And also brilliant here, I can record an audio recording or record a video of myself just with a web camera for the student to see and hear me. I strongly encourage educators to try out and play around with these tools and share these with their students. One, it might be really quick and easy for you as opposed to writing out a bunch of feedback to actually just make a quick recording of yourself giving it. And secondly, I think, again, our students see a lot of text-based feedback and it has a time and place, but from our students' perspective, actually hearing the teacher's voice, hearing the tone and inflection you're using, or seeing you in the facial expressions as you're giving that feedback can be really powerful for our students. And I want to say this for all students. If you find yourself in elementary and their literacy skills aren't quite strong yet because of their age, it is a really good resource for your students to see and hear you. But I think that's true at the secondary level as well, or for our ELL students. This is also a great option for them to see you and hear you and get that feedback. As the educator now, so okay, I've gone annotated on top of the student work if I want, I've leveled off a rubric, I've given specific criteria on those criterion, I've given some overall feedback, maybe I've done an audio or video recording, uploaded or attached a file if I wanted. I'm kind of done with the student. I can choose to save this as a draft, which means I'm not sharing it back with the student yet. I'm going to come back to this later, or kind of maybe I'm going to assess my entire class set of work before I return and publish all the feedback for the class. And you can click publish to do that in one shot, or I could publish this right back to the student now. I'm good with publishing right off the bat, so I'm going to click published here, and I can see that's published. If I have regrets about that, I'm like, oh no, I actually don't want the student to see this yet, you will see you can come back here and there is a retract option. So I'm going to retract it, and maybe I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to save this as a draft, and I get that confirmation that has been saved as a draft. Okay. I only had one student piece of work to submit right now, but if I to review rather and assess. But up here in the top right with the user number, I could jump back and forth between students and just work through the next one. So I don't need to go back to the folder submissions and find a student. I could just go to the next piece of student work there if I wanted. Again, if the student had multiple file submissions to this and you allowed that in your submission, you could look through those multiple submissions here as well. I could go back to the user submissions here or back to the folder submission. So I'm done here. I've got the saved as a draft. I can see it's not published yet, I'm going to come up to the top left and click on back to folder submissions. And so I can see here for this folder, this is within the folder for the assignment itself. It will list all of your students here with their work for you to review. You can see other things here. So here's an option for me to publish all feedback to students, because I can see this was a draft that was saved of their feedback, and I can see the date and time for that. I can edit the folder here. I can review submissions instead of users for these tabs, and some other really great options here that I really, really like. One, email users without submission. So this is going to show you the work that's come in from your class. If it's well past the due date and you want to flag this to the students who have not submitted the work, click this button and it will bring up the students in your class who have not submitted for you to send a group email to them. Again, you have lots of other options here. Also publish feedback through this, or you can use action items here to certain things for specific students or for specific student work via the tags here to set this off. So great feature there. I'm going to go back to assessment though and the assignments folder. So now here for my tracking as an educator, I can see for this essay, I don't have any new submissions anymore because I've clicked on it and dealt with it. I can see it's been one of two have been completed, and this is the student submissions. I can see I've evaluated one of these two, but I can see I've not published the feedback for this yet. So again, if I wanted to do that, I could click on the essay folder. I'm ready to publish feedback. I'm simply going to click the button here for publish all feedback in the top left. And it says the following students here have not been in all rubric criteria. So it's kind of letting me know and flagging some information. Oh, I haven't done everything I needed to with that. I'm going to actually, because I didn't put an overall score there. So I'm like, you know what? Oh, okay, good to know. I'm going to click back here and go to the student work. I'm going to expand out the rubric here. And I could look for the criteria has been overridden. And so I could look to play around with this if I wanted, or make sure I've got the settings where I want them to be and set that to publish again to the student. And now I can see that's published. Okay. So it will try and flag key things for you if you're missing something. Heading back to that assignment folder now, I can see my feedback has been published to the student. Okay. I've got that text submission from a student here. Very similar experience. If I click on one new submission here again, I can see it's not been evaluated. It's flagged off for me to read. Again, I can jump through their submissions, which in this case is date and time stamped. I'm going to, for here, I can read this submission now. So it's unevaluated. Here's the text submission from my student. And then again, I didn't attach a rubric to this. So I just have overall feedback to give. I could record that audio or video and then publish that back to my students. I'm gonna pop out of this one here. Okay, so quick review. Via assessment and assignments, I'm brought to the dashboard. You can also go to Quick Eval for a different look and some customizations, and to kind of narrow down to specific tasks, a specific assignment, overall class, or across all of your classes. But in the assignments folder here, I will see new submissions that are coming in. Completed tells me how many students in my class have submitted for that task. I can see if I've offered an evaluation or feedback to the students in that or not, and then whether I've published that or not along with the due date here. I can jump right to a submission or into that folder to review student work that has been submitted and see a variety of other options there. Okay. Good to know here then from the student perspective as well, what do things look like? So what I'm going to do from here, I'm going to minimize this again, pop out of this screen, and pull up the student view. Now, if I just jump back here as a student to the homepage of the class, click on assessment and go to assignments, I can see here, oh, okay, I haven't had a score because I didn't set this up. This was ungraded, but if I did mark this with a number, the student would see their grade there. And then feedback is unread. So from here as a student, I can click on this. It will bring me to my assignment page. I can see the rubric here. So I got the overall feedback is highlighted for me right off the bat. I can see that information. The next steps my teacher gave me is the overall feedback. Review the rubric, the level I got, the specific criterion that was given to me on that rubric, and then the submission attempts for that. Scrolling down here though, so there's my quick overview of the feedback for this task. What about the annotations though? So as a student, if I scroll down to the bottom here, I can see my work and then this inline feedback. So I'm going to click view inline feedback and see it's hyperlinked for me. And as a student, it's going to pop me out to that page in a new tab, and I can see those annotations right on top of my work. So I can see my teacher drawing here in the highlights, the text. If I hover over that note, there's that information for me. As a student, I can't move this as just a viewer for me to see the feedback. I can hover over here and see that too, and click off and review those annotations. So close that tab. Again, as the student, overall feedback is highlighted here at the top for the student. They can see their rubric and levels. Jump to the assignment via this link, or their inline feedback is if you use annotations on top of the document, they can click to jump to that right there and then click done. As a student here, it now flags this to me as having been read, which is great too. So they can see, hey, here's a link. You haven't looked at your feedback yet as a student, or you have read it. Once they've read it, they can still go back to it again. With my tracking here from the student view, I can see, oh, I haven't submitted this file. There's an attachment for me to review and go look at this from my teacher and then get on submitting that. Or with the text submission here, I can see, yep, I have submitted it, but again, it hasn't been graded and it hasn't been evaluated yet. So I don't have that feedback from my teacher yet. Okay. All right. I think hopefully that is a good, quick overview of this. I guess if I wanted to highlight one other thing, because we didn't look at the score option, you could look to add that in as well. If I jump over to the assignment, as a student, I'm going to minimize this and jump back into my teacher view here. If I go to assessment now and back into my assignments, if I go to edit this, let's go to the text submission here and edit this folder. I have this set as ungraded. Now, key piece here is some settings are locked because submissions have been received. Okay, something to be in mind of here, and this is to be fair and equitable to your students. You can't go in once submissions have come in and they've seen the instructions and what their expectations are and change certain things. So you want to keep this in mind. This is what I want to highlight for everybody here. So from here, ungraded. Now you can see I clicked in and it popped out for me. So it is allowing me to change that. It will flag to you if you're trying to change something that doesn't think is fair for you to change. Something to keep in mind and be aware of. So as a teacher here, if I wanted to score this, say, out of 10, I can see it's going into grades. I can choose from the grades tool it's going to go to. I can choose from, if I decide I don't want this to be part of grades, or I can reset it to being ungraded here. I'm gonna go choose from grades, and then my category, I've got a category here, so I'm gonna add it to that. I'm going to create and link this to a new grade item. So the grade item is going to be the assignment, which is what I named text submission here. It's going to go into this grading category that I set up and click OK. So now I know it's in grades. I've got a due date on it, and now that's score out of 10 with my other pieces here. So I'm going to click save and close now. Okay. Now, as the educator, I've got that set up. I'm going to go over here to this text submission now. I can see it's in grades. That's that little ribbon to let me know it's now in the grades tool. I can see there's something flagged for me that I haven't assessed yet. So I'm going to click. It jumps me right out to the pieces I haven't seen. I can see them here on the first student. I can see which student it is. Their name is secondary demo here, and it has their profile icon. I can see how many submissions have come in. And then here is this text submission. Again, it's a really quick, short answer from the student. Now you'll see over here, I've got this option for a grade. So I can simply click the arrows up or down or type it in and then give my overall feedback as well. And then see the class and user statistics if I want as I'm assessing this to track how this is going in my class and how students are performing. Really great option there. I'm done and good here. Let's leave the feedback. I'm going to click publish. Okay, you can see it's now been published. I'm going to click back to assignments in the top left corner. And now I can see that tracking here. For me, that will be showing up in the grades area. So if I go to my assessments here and the grades tool, I will get that tracking for my class and what's been calculated and what hasn't. I could scroll across and look through my assignments and see what has been assessed and where, and track student by student via the grades tool as well. Okay, so just wanted to flag that. If you again want to manage your grades via the grades tool here, you can click on manage grades and get through that, or again, go back through the setup wizard if you wanted to change something as well. Okay. All right, hope this video has been helpful for you. Again, as a quick review, we looked very quickly at how you can post an assignment or create a rubric and attach that rubric to an assignment. Keep in mind, this was covered in detail in a previous video, but the focus for us here was as students are submitting work to you, and keeping in mind how they submit is tied to your setup for it. So if it's a file submission, your student needs to submit a file to it. If it's a text submission, they can type in or add just an audio or video and submit that to you. And there's also other options there for observed in person, or I think just like a manual other one too that's escaped me off the top of my head at the moment. Okay, so keep those in mind. We assess via the rubric, and we've got that data there in the student view for that, and how you can connect that with the grades tool as well. All right, I hope you found this video helpful and it gives you some insights into what does it look like from the student perspective to submit some work to you, and then as an educator from your end, giving some feedback using the wealth of tools in here, like that annotations tool to annotate right on top of student work, using the rubrics tool to give them levels on specific criteria and choose the criteria you want, giving specific feedback to students based on the criteria of the rubric via the rubric, and then still having that spot to go overall and give overall feedback to the student on the task, and possibly leveraging audio or video tools to share that with your students as well, so they can see you or hear you or listen to you, and then looking at what does that look like from the student perspective to see all of that information. I'll highlight here, there are a variety of other ways to assess students and give feedback throughout Brightspace. This is only kind of the main one we're coming down here via assignments. But quickly, you have options with the quizzes tool. You have options with the portfolio tool to give feedback and use rubrics with students as well. You can actually assess and give feedback on discussions as well. There are lots of ways to use assessment and give feedback throughout Brightspace. There'll be some future videos on that. But again, the focus here was via assignments and rubrics and sharing feedback with students that way. All the best.